And a very good evening to you, WNBA fans and women's basketball fans, for that matter. We welcome you into the WNBA 365 Network, your comprehensive all-access home for all things WNBA and women's basketball. Joining you folks tonight to recap a couple of matinee day games on this Wednesday doubleheader schedule. Joined tonight in the Hangout by our good friends Crystal Thomas in Los Angeles and our good buddy Marquez Anderson from the Project Spurs Network and StarsHoops.net. Tom McClure joining you folks here from from the Calamac Sports Studios in San Diego. KT and Marquez, good to see you guys tonight. How's it going?
Hi.
Going good.
All is good in the neighborhood this evening, apparently. With that, folks, like normal, give us your questions, comments, concerns tonight on all things WNBA women's hoops. We'll get to both games, a couple of news stories, and give you the game breakdown for tomorrow. We're going to try to keep this at about a 35-minute show this evening. With that, folks, of course, find us over on Facebook, facebook.com/WNBA365, on Twitter at WNBA365, at Calamac3, at O Marquez, or at Pup1010 with the hashtag WNBA365, or find the live chat box in the right corner of your screen and send us your questions, comments, or concerns this evening. With that, guys, we'll get to the, folks, two early matinee day games here this evening. Again, all games are played at about 8:30 local time out here on the West Coast. The first game, guys, we'll get to is the Sun and Mystics this evening. Washington wins another game to improve their mark to 4-2. They edge the Sun 78-76. Sun were paced by Shakina Strickland, 20 points tonight, and Jonquel Jones having another breakout game, 14 points. The Mystics paced today by Taylor Hill with 18 points and Elena Deladon 13 points in the Mystics' victory to improve their mark to 4-2 on the season. Crystal, starting with you with Connecticut, I know that we have come here a couple times and talked about, how well this team has played in spite of their record, and sometimes I think sometimes in sports, you sometimes say to yourself, well, that team's play on the court or play in general doesn't really reflect their record. Now, obviously, the Sun have a couple of those, lopsided affair losses on their record. But still, though, Crystal, I've seen them, though, for the most part, hang around in a lot of games so far this season. And as we've talked about plenty of times about, the learning curve for this team, Crystal, obviously, it's another L for the Sun. They're now down to 1-5 and tied for last place, or they're a game up for last place, I should say. But, Crystal, is it still somewhat promising, though, seeing this Connecticut team obviously take their licks? But they've been in pretty much, for the most part, every game for at least the most part through the 6-game sample size. What do you say, though, about it and why?
What I see is a young team. Ooh, I'm echoing. What I see is a young team that kind of makes, they seem to make a lot of mistakes during the game, which ends up making them lose. This is like the third game that we've seen them when they were like in it, you could say. There was a point where they were winning and I thought they were going to win. I thought they were going to give Washington an L, but that team is young and they have a lot of things to fix as far as them being so young. There was a lot of things in the game today that kind of made me shake my head with disappointment. One of them was near the end of the game, they didn't foul. They just let Ivy Lotta, run up the court. Luckily, she missed it. It didn't matter anyway because they lost. But for them, luckily, she missed it, even though it took a big portion of the time off of the clock when they should have fouled. And there was just a lot of things they did wrong that you could tell their youth is definitely prevailing for them, and not in a good way.
Marquez, obviously, these young teams, as we've said, between the Sun and Stars, plenty of times on here we've been on here for the most part this season, as we've talked a lot about, the youth experiment is going to take some time for that, formulate, that winning equation to formulate. But again, Marquez, I think, though, in regards to Connecticut, that, they are somewhat head and shoulders, I think, ahead of that learning curve than San Antonio right now. Obviously, the Stars, we'll talk about them in the next game coming up momentarily. But I guess, Marquez, to kind of bank off Crystal, I guess, what have you seen, though, from this Connecticut team? Obviously, young team, and somehow, some way, though, they're hanging around in ball games that really they probably have no business staying in games for as long as they have so far this season. What do you think and why?
Yeah, like Crystal said, just to kind of piggyback off of that, they're just young and they're still taking their bumps and just taking hits from team to team because they really haven't quite learned how to play a full, complete game yet. I think sometimes for them being so young, they do make a lot of mental mistakes at games. Like Crystal said, not fouling when they really should have maybe, or maybe just like just having a lapse on a play that gives Washington or any other team they play an easy basket. So I just think it just goes to show how young they are. Like I said, it's really, and with the young team, it's just going to take a little time for it all to click and come together. And they're still trying to learn how to do that. But I think what makes Connecticut a little bit different than some of the other younger teams is that they have their system in place already. Like they have their style of play, and it's just a matter of just connecting and clicking. They know what they want to do in terms of shooting the three, and they did that really well today, although they didn't really shoot particularly well from inside of that arc, Washington either. But they have a system. They're playing to that system, and I think eventually they'll get things going like they did last year.
Crystal, in your mind, does Kurt Miller somewhat get more credit or more criticism for how his team has played so far this season? I mean, obviously, system is in place as Marquez, but I think they really have abided by that system so far. So, Crystal, in your mind, more criticism or more compliments maybe for Kurt Miller for how he's handled this rough start for his team so far this season?
I don't think he gets criticism because they are the youngest team in the league. I don't know if you can really criticize him for that because, like I always say, the coaches aren't out there playing for you. The coaches are just trying to put you in the right direction and put you in the best position to win. And it's up to your players and your team to see if they can get in the position you're trying to help them with. So I don't really blame him as far as why they're losing. I think his team's just really young. Like they have to figure out how they can stay in the game, and they have to figure out what works for them. Because it seems like in the last few games when they only lost by a few points, it's kind of like they get excited that they're up because they're not used to. I mean, let's just keep it real. They're not really used to having a winning mindset yet because they are so young. It's kind of as if they're like, okay, we have this team here, so we can just kind of, let's just kind of coast a little bit. And I think that's their biggest problem is they have to learn how to, when they're up, they have to learn how to keep a lead instead of kind of just losing it.
Marquez, quickly, let's go to Jonquel Jones real quick, because I know that, Sally folks, we have not been able to post our Player of the Week poll question yet. We'll probably get to that eventually for last week. But Marquez, I think that either you or Crystal or Shorty or one of you three guys had mentioned Jonquel Jones in the equation, perhaps, or in the running, I think, for Player of the Week for our network poll question. Marquez, how would you assess her play lately? Because I think she really has started to somewhat have a bit of a breakout couple of games here. But how has her play, I guess, in your mind, improved over the past, 2-3 games, maybe in your mind?
Yeah, she's definitely been one of their more consistent players in terms of scoring, rebounding, and just making plays in general. And she really needed to. With Shanae not playing this year, the opportunity was really hers to come and break out and have the type of season that she's had so far. And I just think you can see her potential is just through the roof. She runs the floor well. She can score from really anywhere on the floor. She's long. She's athletic. She just has it all. She has everything in the toolbox. So I think her potential is she's really just scratching the surface. And to answer your last question about why Connecticut is kind of getting off to this rocky start, I think we also have to remember they're a team that's battled their fair share of injuries too. Rachel Bandom still is coming back from run. Morgan Tuck actually missed the game today. So you still see a lot of players in and out of that lineup. So it's really hard to kind of get that sense of connectiveness and cohesion because it's so many injuries every year, it seems, for them.
One quick comment, guys, from Todd Mintz about the Sun and their youth. He says it might be time to somewhat stop using the young or the term young as an excuse, perhaps, for some, because they do have very good talent. They certainly had a killer instinct against Chicago. Either that is an indication of Chicago, or CT was just taught. And I think Crystal probably, that is a pretty good point. But Crystal, in your mind, though, when do you kind of somewhat cut the cord about this team's, youth and experience in your mind? Like, how many more games or seasons, I guess, can you really go by, continuing? Marquez, we'll go to you with this question. Crystal just, okay, we'll go back to Crystal now. Crystal, again, to reiterate that question at this point in time, I guess how much longer do you think, though, the Sun can really, somewhat use that, use the word youth in regards to, why their record is somewhat under par for at least the next couple games or maybe even a couple seasons?
You said how much longer can we say that they're young?
Yes.
This is going to sound really dumb to say, but until they become in their prime, to be honest, I mean, they're a young team. who plays young. I mean, it's one thing to be a young team and have young players who actually play like they've been there before, and it's actually a situation like Connecticut where you have a young team who definitely shows that they're young. They definitely don't um, they don't have a good veteran presence. I'm not saying that Alex Bentley is not, a good vet to be around, but I think definitely things are lacking there. I think they're missing a veteran leader that can really steer them in the right direction.
Marquez, I agree that, the Sun do have a lot of young talent, but, sometimes when there's not really that veteran leader, like a full blown, a vet that's been around, 6, 7, 8, 10 years to really help these young kids out, that could be one minor problem in my mind, at least. But Marquez, what do you probably say about, how much longer the Sun can somewhat use the youth and experience as maybe a potential excuse for how that they're, how the starts have somewhat been the past couple seasons, and including this year as well?
Um, well, it's still really hard to say because, like I said, they still really a lot of these players still haven't really had much time on the court to really find where they fit. Like I said, you look at Bantam, for example. She was battling an injury last year. She's coming back this year from injury, and she still hasn't really found her groove. And I think that can be said for a lot of these players. None of them really have playoff experience, so they really don't really know what that feels like. And until they actually get to that level or that stage, they won't know. And like Crystal said, I mean, no matter which way you really cut it, there's still going to be a really young team, and youth sometimes shows. And I really don't think you can really put a timetable on that because each team is different and each situation is different. So I think until they really take that next step, it it sort of is not that great of an excuse, but at the same time, it's a reason why they really haven't taken that next step yet.
Crystal, moving gears now to the Mystics again. They've won their third straight game after a 1-2, 3-game sample size slow start. And again, we have somewhat talked, of course, about, is it going to be EDD and a bunch of other players helping her out? Again, today it was Taylor Hill with 18 points, but again, Daladon was the number two leading scorer for Washington this morning. So their third straight win, now 4-2 on the season. Crystal, at least through the 6-game sample size, is this about where you expected Washington in your mind before the season, or were you expecting them to be somewhere up top or somewhere maybe a little bit below your expectations for perhaps the first 6 games? Where do you think in your mind they are right now after a 4-2 start?
As of right now, it's still early as far as seedings and rankings go, but as of right now, they're kind of, I guess, what they are and what I thought they would be. I mean, it's not that's necessarily a good or bad thing. Because, like I said, right now, you're gonna constantly the rankings are constantly gonna change, especially since it's only 6 games in for some people, 5 games in for others. So that's kind of hard to answer right now. But I guess you could say they're about where I thought they would be.
And Marquez, what about you? I know that we've all been somewhat skeptical, somewhat leaning about what how this roster makeover would be for the Mystics. And again, they got to a 1-2 start after 3 games, and somewhat picked up the pace now 4-2 after 6 games at least. Marquez, is this about where you probably expected Washington to be with this new roster, or what have you?
Yeah, I think so. I never really considered them to be a real contender, in my opinion. And and if you really look at their wins, look who they've played and beaten.
Exactly.
It's not really like when they played Seattle. Even when they played Seattle, they lost. They lost to LA. San Antonio gave them a tough game for a long stretch. Connecticut gave them a really good game today. They lost to Minnesota. So I really don't.
They didn't play Minnesota yet.
Oh dang!
Well, you're getting that's coming up though. That's coming up though.
But yeah, they just don't. I just don't think they really have what it takes to be to be in that top tier. And like I said, just looking at the teams they've beaten in the fashion that they have beaten some of these teams, it really hasn't been that pretty. Because like you said today, they didn't really shoot the ball well.
I agree.
People will probably say that some of the refs' calls were kind of a little bit iffy. So they're about what I expected. Like I said, I don't really think they're going to be one of the top teams this year. I think they'll be around in the middle.
Of course, and it's still early.
Yeah, and like I said, they really haven't clicked yet.
Yeah.
Themselves, but even when they do, I still don't really see them as one of those top 4 maybe they'll get that 4 seed best case scenario, but I really see them in the 4, 5, 6 range.
Yeah.
So again, folks, the Sun and Mystics. Mystics win today 78-76, the first of a Wednesday early morning doubleheader for us West Coasters out here. Next game, guys, last game for the day, by the way. Stars and Dream. Atlanta improves their record to 4-1 on the season as they knock off the Stars 77-70. San Antonio paced today by a 27 combined point effort from Mo Curry and De'Erica Hamby today, while the Dream were paced by a 31-point attack combined between Tip Hayes and Bria Holmes this evening. And Marquez, a quick question for you from your good colleague, Mr. Steven Anderson from starsoups.net. He's asking, can we discuss the reasons why Kelsey Plum has had a lack of playing time so far this season? Obviously, Marquez, number one pick, obviously, at least from my point of view, again, number one pick, yes, but of course, don't want to rush them back, though, from any type of injury, whether it's a minor injury or what have you. And obviously, there is going to be growing pains with both her and Nia Coffey. I think we kind of forget about Nia as well. And I think Vicki Johnson has somewhat kind of gotten a little flustered, I guess, about answering these questions, in regards to, them being asked by, everyone out there, basically, why are you not playing Plum so much? And he said it's a process. And to kind of take a word away from the Philadelphia 76ers of the NBA, trust the process. It's going to take some time here. But Marquez, what do you think, though, to answer your buddy's question?
Okay, well, look, being completely upfront, you can ask Crystal. Like, me and her have talked about this countless times. Even before the draft, I kind of had my doubts about how they fit these two, all the players they had on the roster. Not because I didn't think it could be done, but just because they kind of play the same things and there's a huge overlap. So I think in general, expecting her to beat out Mariah Jefferson, who had a really good year last year, that was kind of a bit unfair to say. And then you have Kayla McBride at the shooting guard, and thinking that Kelsey would beat her out as well for that spot was also kind of a bit unfair to Kelsey as well, because, I mean, those two have just been there a little bit longer. And then I think in terms of her not playing them all three together, anyone that knows VJ knows that she's a defensive-minded coach. And so I don't think, in her mind, I don't think playing those three together at the same time, going small, really fits her philosophy and thinking. So I think that kind of can explain why. But still, that doesn't excuse the fact that you spent the number one pick on someone to play them, 8, 9, 10 minutes a game. It kind of makes it look like a waste. Only because you picked her, but you're not really justifying why you picked her, because she's still sitting on the bench. Same can go for Nia. So it's kind of like, and this team is still young and growing together. So it's just like, why not play them? Why not let them get that experience of real minutes, game time situations? Because if you don't give it to them, they'll never know. Them sitting them on the bench 24/7 isn't going to really do anything for their development either. So I get what she's saying with it being a process, because even Mariah Jefferson, even the greatest players that come in have a slight learning curve. But completely pushing them to the end of the rotation, it doesn't do them any good either.
So Crystal, I mean, I'm kind of waiting for more articles or more fans to call Kelsey Plum a bust after playing a couple of games and, again, sitting out a couple of games with that ankle injury. And that, I think, is a far-fetched idea, because you really, as we know very well, can't really judge a team on, a 3-game, 5 or 6 or 7-game sample size. And obviously, we know that the Stars are going to be in for a long-haul season. And I do have a couple of unfortunate records that they could be approaching this season in regards to the start they've gotten off to. But, Crystal, to kind of answer Steven's question, though, what do you think, though, is the main reason as to why Kelsey Plum has not played a lot of elevated minutes as of yet through the couple games she's played?
I think Marquez pretty much summed it up. Like, he's pretty much hit the nail on the head with that one. I mean, we have talked about it. It kind of did look like San Antonio was kind of flustered and confused, and honestly just picked her because she was the number one pick. And I don't think that comes to show you that just because you have the number one pick doesn't mean you should probably pick who people expect you to pick. You should probably pick for what you need. And I think in this case, San Antonio really didn't pick for a need. I mean, they really didn't need another guard. You have a really great one in Mo Jeff, and I think, it was just in her head like, oh, we have to get Kelsey Plum, she's the number one pick. But I wouldn't necessarily call her a bust. I mean, she hasn't played enough minutes to determine if she's a bust or not. I don't think I don't think she's a bust. I just think we have to see what more she could do, and if she gets more playing time, hopefully she can prove herself.
And to kind of to continue, if you look at the way she's being utilized, it just kind of looks really disjointed. Like, I mean, the
Yeah.
ball really isn't in her hands at all. She's going to the corner, waiting for the ball, but that's not really her game. She's a playmaker and a penetrator, and I think the injury kind of played a part in that, to where she maybe doesn't have the same explosiveness or agility that she had before her injury, and she's still trying to work back into that. But just watching it just seems off. Like, I don't think I've ever seen Kelsey Plum go to the corner of the court waiting for the ball in a catch and shoot situation, because that's just not her game. And it's really hard to like really pinpoint why exactly she's being used that way, because it really takes away one of her biggest strengths, and that's penetrating. And if she's not doing that, it's just kind of like, well, why'd you pick her if you're not gonna like utilize her to her best abilities? Because everyone knows she's a point guard. She creates looks for herself and others, and if you're not letting her do that, it's just kind of like, what are you doing?
Crystal, real quick before we move on to Atlanta's side of the story here, in regards to that, now I know that, I mean, we've seen Candace Wiggins and we've seen Skylar Diggins-Smith somewhat alter their game after having some type of, catastrophe with an injury, either Wiggins with the Achilles back in 2009, or even Diggins a couple years ago at Tulsa. Crystal, does it somewhat, stay in players' minds about injuries, and they somewhat try to alter their game to kind of, compensate for that injury, or what have you?
I mean, it can, depending on the injury, depending on how bad it was, depending on what happened. It can. I mean, there's sometimes people lose confidence in how they played before they got injured. I mean, I'm sorry, people lose confidence in how they played after they got injured because they're not necessarily going to be the same. So I think it depends on the injury and depending on how bad it is.
Marquez, to kind of bank off that question again once more, somewhat with what he talked about, and I know firsthand of seeing Kelsey play in high school and, of course, at UW. But obviously, we've seen, either Candace Wiggins or Skylar Diggins alter their game because, again, they were coming off of major injuries, as I mentioned, Wiggins with the Achilles injury, and then, of course, Diggins with the ripped ACL a couple of seasons ago. Marquez, do you think, though, that perhaps that Plum is trying to somewhat alter her game a little bit to kind of compensate for that ankle injury at this point?
I wouldn't say that. I really just think it's more so her not really having a place in the system, if that makes sense.
True.
Like, if you pick someone number one and you don't really give them the opportunity to show why they were that number one pick, it's kind of like, well, what is she to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what can she really show in 4-minute spurts? Because that's just not who she is. She's not a catch and shoot type of player. She's really a rhythm shooter. She needs to get into a rhythm, and once she gets into that rhythm, it's really game over for her defenders. And if she's playing, like I said, 4-minute spurts, what can she really do with that? And I think the position that Plum is in right now, there's really no minutes open for her, which is kind of why I think she's getting played the way she is. Because if you play Mariah, 30 minutes a game, you turn around and have Kayla playing the same amount, where does Kelsey fit into that? And I think that was one of the biggest questions entering into the season, is how are you going to split all those minutes when a lot of these players have the same overlap in their skills? And I think that's being shown right now. And yeah, it's a rough situation for Kelsey, because I know she wants to compete. I know she wants to produce like she knows she can. But given the situation she's in, like I said, what can she do?
So with that, again, guys, to Atlanta now. Again, the Dream beat the Stars today 77-70. So, Crystal, Atlanta, somewhat, kind of coming somewhat out of nowhere. I mean, we somewhat, I think all of us as well kind of had somewhat of some minor doubts in our mind about how far this team would go without Angel McCoughtry. And so far, you've had Tiffany Hayes have a great start to the season. You've had Elijah Clarendon playing absolutely out of her mind, too. And you've had a lot of other, role players somewhat stepping up in big situations and playing great. Crystal, overall thoughts on ATL's victory, at least from their side of the coin today?
Atlanta's been playing very well. I think they have a little bit of extra motivation because I think so many people said they wouldn't be good without Angel. So I think they're kind of taking that into account in their They're kind of like an okay, people don't believe in us, so we're gonna make them believe that we can be, I guess, in their mind and in their hopes, contenders. But I mean, they played well, but the fact that they only beat San Antonio by 7, it's pretty alarming for them. Even though San Antonio lost, that's a good game for them. But in regards to them losing San Antonio by 7, it's bad. It's a bad game for Atlanta.
So Marquez, a different question with you with ATL. Which player on Atlanta has somewhat intrigued you the most on the roster, considering that they are without Angel this at least for half of the season? And again, 4-1 start for them. But which player, Chris Marquez, in your mind, has really stepped up and really has been a very intriguing player to watch in your mind on this ATL roster?
Can I give you two?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna just go with the really simple, easiest answer. And Tiffany Hayes and Lasia Clarendon, they're the highest scoring backcourt in the league. And even though they've been without Angel, those two have really stepped up to fill that void. And I think that really goes to show that those two were like, hey, yeah, we're without one of our best players, but we still have talent. And you saw it today. Tiffany Hayes really led the charge for them on both ends of the floor. Lasia Clarendon was really great. She's a really good leader. Tiffany Hayes as well. There were a couple of pieces throughout the game where Hayes was just like, yeah, I've had to grow in terms of being a vocal leader. I've had to grow in several different aspects on the court, and that's really showed in her play. Um, I know in the game today, they really forced a lot of turnovers, and that was in case in point of those two leading the charge on that end, especially in that second half. So I would definitely say those two.
And Crystal, how about you? Which player or players, I need to rephrase the question, has really intrigued you the most on ATL's roster so far? That's carried this team to a 4-1 record, and as of right now, first place in the Eastern Conference.
I'm gonna one up Marquez and say 3 because 3
Oh,
is better than 2.
all right, all right.
I'm gonna. I do agree with Lasia Clarendon and Tiffany Hayes, but I also want to add Bria Holmes in there.
Mhm.
I think Bria Holmes, especially for her kind of being young in this team, she's doing very well. I mean, for one, Tiffany Hayes, I agree. She's matured as a player on and off the court. She's matured as a person, and it really shows. I mean, her leadership that she's having the gym go through, it's really big. I think for them, losing Angel and gaining another leader in Tiffany Hayes and Lasia Clarendon, I think that's helping them out really well. I mean, they're very receptive. They're making Michael Cooper look like, coach of the year right now, even though it's too early. I'm not saying he's a coach of the year. I'm just saying they're making him look really, really, really good. And I mean, it's surprising how well they're doing. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I didn't expect them to get off to a 4-1 start. I mean, it still is early. Anything can happen in the drop of a dime. But for them to start off as well as they're starting off, and to have the best scoring backcourt in the league, I mean, it's kind of surprising to me.
Guys, I'm going to one up all of you like this is the Price is Right and bid another dollar higher than Marquez and Crystal. I'm going to go with Clarendon, Hayes, and Holmes because all three of these players have really just guys lit the court on fire these past couple games. Of course, the LA game and then even now. I think the guys that I think out of all three, though, Lasia Clarendon has really stepped up in a big situation. Of course, I saw her with the fever, somewhat kind of a sixth woman off the bench, and now comes in as a starter for ATL and really has had a major, now I think impact, but also has had a very great, career so far down there. And as I always say, guys, change of scenery normally helps. And so far, that change for Clarendon going to ATL is really, I think, paid dividends. And Todd, to answer your question, you had two of the records I was going to get, the three of them. So Marquez, I hate to break it to you, man, but right now the Stars are still 0-6, but they're still a long ways away, though, from three feudal records in WNBA lore right now. Of course, the 08 Dream started the season 0-17. The 2011 Tulsa Shock set two records by having a 20-game losing streak and the worst record in WNBA history, going 3-31 in that season. Marquez, I highly doubt the Stars get that close to it, but Marquez, would it be, maybe a little surprising if, in fact, the Stars did, somewhat go down that path in regards to somewhat near these, obviously infamous WNBA records? I highly doubt they're going to get there, but at this point, Marquez, through 6 games, I think a lot of people would say they're on a collision course for disaster right now. But what do you think, though?
I don't really think I'm not even gonna say that. I highly doubt that we're gonna be that bad. Like, there's still there's no way. Like, I'm willing to put money on it, but I just think a lot of people kind of had some unrealistic expectations. Like I, for one, just wanted us to improve. That's it. But I feel like a lot of people thought that this move, like X, Y, and Z, would kind of automatically push us into like that lower tier of playoff teams. And I just think that really wasn't right because I mean, hey, this is a team filled with new players, a new coach, a new system, a new GM. It's a lot of new, and that's a bit much to ask when you have that much newness in one setting. Um, so no, I really don't think it's gonna be that bad. But I mean, hey, if we don't end up being that good, we're only increasing our odds for that number one pick again. And hey, we saw how Seattle was able to turn things around with back-to-back number ones. So I mean, if we have that same fortune, then so be it. And to kind of backtrack to the game, I have to give a shout out to Mo Curry because her antics on the court were like giving me all,
Yeah.
were giving me so much life. Like her spiking the ball, like even though that was a tech, that was fantastic. That was amazing. I loved it. Loved every second.
Now, Crystal, to be very serious here, I highly doubt the Stars are going to lose more than 31 games. I'm sure they're going to pull off at least a couple of wins and probably pull a couple of upsets on potential playoff teams. Maybe later on in the season we get closer to the playoffs, but I think that they're certainly not going to lose 20 straight, and they're certainly not going to finish between 31. The only one I think though that could potentially happen is perhaps maybe a few more losses to start the season, but I still don't think that they're going to even lose 17 straight to start the season. But Crystal, do you perhaps, if something really bad did happen though, do you think the Stars could potentially be on that collision course for, either one or maybe all three of these infamous WNBA records?
I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna lose that many. I agree with both you and Marquez there. Um, I don't know how many games they will win. I don't think they'll have break the record for the least wins in the season. I do think though that they will beat some teams that they're not supposed to beat. Like I think they're gonna upset a few teams. But I don't see them getting that. I feel like they will get some wins. I mean, if they can have another breakout game from Hamby and if Mo Curry can get it going again, I think they're bound to beat somebody.
Yeah, so all of us plus Todd in the chat box and all of them in the chat box agree they will not finish between 31. As long as they can at least break more than 7 wins, I think in my mind, I think it's a pretty good year for them. Guys, moving on now to a new segment we're going to be starting here on the network, along with the poll question, of course, guys, that we'll get to later on. But guys, it's called. I wish I could echo here, but it's going to be called One Big Question. We have 2 teams right now, guys, with the Dream and Storm, who are riding pretty nice winning streaks, and of course they're behind the 6-0 Minnesota Lynx. Chris, we'll start with you with one big question. Who is most likely to stay hot over their next 5 games, ATL or Seattle? What do you think?
Uh,
Oh man.
I would have to look at the schedule to.
Yeah, I'm about to say,
really,
let me pull up these schedules.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at the schedule to really get a really good I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna have to look at the schedule real quick. You're gonna have to come back to me on that one because I really want to take the time to think about this.
I am shook after the schedule.
Yeah,
a new segment that throws the whole panel for a loop. But again, folks, if you want to chime in the chat box or on Twitter, again, one big question is which team is most likely to stay hot after their next 5 games? Atlanta or Seattle? Crystal, what do you got?
Okay, looking at this, I just looked at both schedules real quick. Well, seeing how Seattle's next game is Minnesota, I say after the Minnesota game. But you know what?
Atlanta's is pretty favorable too, though.
No, it is. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm looking at it. Like I can see Seattle upsetting Minnesota because of the way their season's going. But I mean, looking at the roster, I can see both of these teams probably dropping one game and remaining hot afterwards. I mean, they're both pretty.
And they kind of play the same. They both kind of play the same teams. Like they both have Indiana. They both have New York. They play each other.
They play each other. Yeah, I can see them probably each dropping a game, but still kind of remaining hot. I will say though, there is a game I won't say no names of no teams, but there is a game coming up for Atlanta that I really hope that they get a W on.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I can see them probably both dropping a game, but still remaining pretty hot.
All right, so Crystal's got both teams losing at least one, and obviously someone's going to have to lose that matchup when they both play each other coming up soon. Marquez, what do you think about this one big question?
That is a good prediction. I feel like they both are gonna lose one, yeah, because they obviously are gonna play each other. So that's a L for
Yeah.
at least one. So I mean, and like I said, it's really hard to say because they both are playing the same teams almost. So I'd say they both have a real chance because their spots in the schedule are really favorable. So I mean, I really think both of them have the opportunity to stay pretty hot.
Yeah, I think both teams, that they're somewhat maybe early season surprises, maybe in regards to how they've started off so well. Seattle in that home court advantage, they won all three home games so far, and Seattle cannot be, probably one of the best places to play in the entire league, on top of LA, Phoenix, and Minnesota. Seattle's right up there with great fan support in their home games, and all that as well. Todd says he's got Seattle and Atlanta. He says they're either going to go 2-3 or 3-2 in their next 5 games. I would probably agree with that in regards to both teams winning 3 of their next 5 games. So hopefully we'll improve on that sentiment, folks. But again, that was our one big question for the night. All right, guys, to the newsmaker wire or the news headlines, of course, guys, the big news, somewhat big news, old news, what have you. The potential return of Liz Cambage to the Dallas Wings apparently shot down as Liz, according to reports today, signed a new contract with a team in the WNBL down in Australia. Crystal, I think I saw someone say it right on Twitter today that the Wings basically treated Cambage like she was a 5-star recruit coming back or coming into college. Crystal, we know about the track record in Tulsa, the off-court issues with Andrew Bogut before the Olympics, and still is carried over to this day. Crystal, in your mind, would it be somewhat crazy for the Wings to bring back Cambage after she's been gone and somewhat, of course, been somewhat, in the negative, I guess, in regards to either her off-court demeanor, in regards to missing training camp for the Olympics, or, of course, the beef with Andrew Bogut? Yeah, I guess in your mind, is Dallas, somewhat, I guess, was it smart for them to not sign Cambage this early in the season in your mind, or what's your whole take on the whole issue?
I don't know if they're really pursuing Cambage like that anyway. I mean, ultimately, she did say a few years ago she wasn't really when they were in Tulsa. She wasn't really feeling coming back. So I'm not really sure if it's her coming back or if she just really was just visiting a friend like she had said she was going to do earlier. But um, I mean, I can see how people could think or probably speculate that Dallas wants her or she wants to come back to Dallas. I mean, I'm pretty sure Dallas as a team probably wants her, but I don't think it's
Hmm.
happening. I mean, I realistically don't see it happening. I mean, not saying that they weren't trying to persuade her to come back, but I don't think Liz really has the WNBA as of right now. Maybe in the near future, maybe, but as of right now, I don't think she's really focused on coming back.
Marquez, the biggest problem, I think, and there's two issues that, of course, still kind of, that don't sit well with me, is one, of course, as we know, the story that broke, of course, during the Olympics was in regards to Cambage missing training camp to attend a concert festival that, of course, set the entire women's basketball social media community on fire. And plus, the very unnecessary beef with Andrew Bogut for no reason. And Bogut really, of course, had a great clapback to Cambage on Twitter. But I guess, Marquez, if you're Dallas, I don't think you can afford to make this move because we've kind of seen with Cambage, her attitude and behaviors sometimes somewhat be that of a perhaps cancerous player on the team that, of course, can bring a whole team down and somewhat being disgruntled towards the Tulsa franchise, at least. Marquez, in your mind, what do you make about this potential move again about Cambage and possibly coming back, or even Marquez? In your mind, Ma, is her mind even fixated on coming back to the WNBA in your mind anytime soon?
Um, I don't think it's happening, but of course, I feel like anyone would like to feel wanted and pursued, if that makes
Mm.
sense. Um, and just going by what we know about her and like her past, she
Hmm.
seems just really free spirited and she just goes with the flow. Like she does things like on the limb. It seems like she just is just like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Um, so I really don't think she's really focused on playing the WNBA at all. Or I wouldn't say at all. I just don't think that's her main focus or priority right now. It seems like she's really involved in other ventures in her life at this point, and I just don't see her really committing full time to playing in Dallas. Um, I just think it was just really wishful thinking for a lot of fans because Courtney Pierce is going to be out for a while. So
Hmm.
it just seemed like it would be perfect timing. But I mean, I just don't think it's happening. I think she's content doing what she does now.
You know, guys, Todd agrees with us in regards. He says personally he'd leave it alone. The rookies are revolution are somewhat bringing the franchise back. He also says they also said that Fred Williams really enjoys coaching this group. And Todd says, don't ruin the team chemistry. And Crystal, that is the one ingredient you and I know very well from our playing days that is very elusive because you have either cliques of players that, go their separate ways, or you have or you have players playing for the me and not the we in regards to the team sport aspect. Crystal, what, in your mind, does Dallas right now in your mind, how is that team chemistry from what you've seen at least through the sample size of games?
It's going. It's going. I mean, whatever they're doing right now has got it working for them. Yeah, it's going. I mean, it's whatever they're doing right now. It's working for them. I mean, that's that's about all I can say about that one.
Marquez, what would you say about team chemistry as a whole? I mean, I know that we see it a lot in sports. Either guys or players go out there and play for themselves, or you have maybe three players hanging out and doing their own thing away from the team. Marquez, how important is team chemistry, especially for a team like Dallas, because we know is somewhat of a mixed bag of vets, but also many rookies and young faces on that roster.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially for a younger team. But I think it really makes a difference because I think you can just see it. You can tell teams that love playing with each other. You can just tell the types of teams that love being with each other on and off the court. Um, and when it's the opposite, you kind of don't see that same connection. Not saying that's Dallas or anyone really in the league, but I mean, it helps. But in terms of their team chemistry, I think, like Crystal said, it's going. It may be better than last year. I don't really know how that particularly went, but I think winning really eases some of
Yeah,
the tension,
eases the
if there
pain.
is any. Yeah. So I mean, what they have going is good for them because they are looking a little bit better than a lot of people thought they would have. So I think like Crystal said, it's going, it's going, it's going, going, and going and going and going.
The energizer buzzy.
Yes, it's going good for right now for the Wings. But again, folks, we still will have more about the Liz Cambage situation if in fact we get any more from our great media correspondents out there that, of course, will pass along news on the web for you folks. Guys, one game and one game only on your Thursday schedule for WNBA Hoops. Merck at Sky, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central Time. That game can be seen in its entirety on League Pass or the U2. All right, Crystal, who you got and why?
It broke off. You said
Phoenix
who at the Sky?
Chicago. Phoenix and
Oh man, Chicago does not have a chance. That's
Ooh.
Phoenix is. I mean, I like Chicago's team, but realistically, they're so bad offensively that I don't even know if a clean shot off, especially when you have Brittany Griner down the middle. It's going to take a lot for them to try to just get a regular score, just trying to drive it in or anything like that. I mean, yeah, Phoenix. I mean, I would love to see Chicago come out and get a few wins, but Phoenix is definitely not going to be a team that they get a win off of. And if they prove me wrong tomorrow, then hey, I'll apologize to all the Sky fans out there, but I just don't see them beating Phoenix.
all right, MA, one vote for the X Factor. How about you?
I'm gonna say Phoenix because I think I picked Chicago last time and they completely failed me. Completely. I felt so hurt, attacked. I felt everything.
Attacked.
So yeah, because I think I really was on here like, oh yeah, they're gonna bounce back. They're gonna do this XYZ, and it didn't happen. So hopefully I'm right this time, and I'm gonna say Phoenix.
I'll just give you an X right now, folks. I mean, this one is pretty plain simple, guys. I will say though, there is probably one very, very small ray of sunshine for Chicago, peeking through those foggy clouds in Chicago right now. And Crystal, you know this person too well, but Imani Boyette is going to have to somehow, some way get herself off the canvas and back up into the field of things. Obviously, somewhat bumped down in the rotation. The past couple games has not had a good start to the season so far. There is a lot of season left, but I think, guys, she's probably one of the biggest components for the Chicago offense outside of Stephanie Dalton and Kathy Conway. So I will look for Imani to have a great game, hopefully, tomorrow, but obviously all three of us will go with Phoenix. Again, folks, as your only game tomorrow, Mercury at the Sky, 5 o'clock tip Pacific time, 8 o'clock Eastern. That game again is on League Pass or the U2. With that, folks, we will call it a night right here and now. And again, we topped out, guys, at 10 viewers tonight on a Wednesday night in our only show for the week at this point. We could have one tomorrow if I'm not handcuffed doing other things. We will be off, both folks, probably does remind me, we will be off there this upcoming Friday, and we'll be off all of the upcoming week of the 21st and 25th. I'll be out of town in Las Vegas and Reno for a little vacation coming up in a couple of weeks. But though, guys, for Crystal Thomas and Marquez Anderson, this is Cal McClurg signing off for the night. And we'll see you folks back here maybe tomorrow. If not, if not, we'll see you back here. If not, on Monday, of course, folks. At this point, and please check your Twitter and Facebook pages for updates for our next upcoming programs either tomorrow or back here on Monday. Till then, folks, take care and good night. Bye-bye.